Nestled deep within the whispering woods, where sunlight dappled through ancient oaks like scattered gold coins, lived Grumbleton. He was a giant of truly impressive stature, with shoulders broad as barn doors and hands large enough to cradle a sheep. Yet Grumbleton harbored a secret that filled him with profound shame. He was terrified of heights. Even standing upon a modest hillock made his enormous knees tremble like saplings in a storm. While other giants scaled mountain peaks for sport, Grumbleton remained firmly in the valley, his world defined by the comforting closeness of the mossy forest floor. He longed to see the sunrise from Eagle's Crag or pluck the juiciest cloudberries from the highest slopes, but the mere thought sent waves of dizzying fear crashing over him. A constant, heavy cloak he could not remove. His life was confined to the lower reaches. A gentle giant tending a sprawling garden of colossal vegetables and wildflowers near a chuckling brook, he befriended the small creatures of the undergrowth, nimble squirrels who chattered gossip, wise badgers who shared stories of the earth, and families of field mice who wove tiny blankets from thistledown. They knew his secret and never judged. Finding solace in his gentle presence, Grumbleton would fashion miniature bridges over puddles for beetles, use fallen leaves as umbrellas for nesting birds during sudden showers, and his deep, rumbling laugh was a familiar, comforting sound echoing through the trees. He found joy in these simple acts, his large fingers surprisingly deft and careful, a sanctuary built amongst the roots and ferns far below the terrifying open sky. One crisp autumn evening, as fiery leaves drifted down like embers, a frantic fluttering disturbed the peace near Grumbleton's enormous boot. Pip, a tiny wide-eyed owl chick, lay trembling on the cold ground, one wing bent at a painful angle. His mother, Talia, circled above, her calls sharp with distress. He tumbled from our nest, she hooted, her voice trembling. It's high up, Grumbleton, so very high on the ledge near the old pine's crown. He's too hurt to fly, and I cannot carry him. She pointed her beak towards the distant, shadowed peak where the ancient pine speared the darkening sky. The nest was perched precariously on a narrow ledge halfway up the towering tree, a dizzying distance above the forest floor. Pip let out a feeble, heart-wrenching peep. Grumbleton's colossal heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He looked from the shivering owlet to the impossibly tall pine, its top disappearing into the gathering twilight mist. The familiar, icy dread of vertigo began to crawl up his spine, making his palms clammy. He saw the sheer drop in his mind, felt the terrifying emptiness beneath him. He wanted to shrink, to hide, to murmur an apology and retreat to the safety of his garden. But then he looked down again. Pip's large, frightened eyes met his, filled with pain and absolute trust. The tiny creature didn't see a giant afraid. It saw its only hope. Talia's silent, pleading gaze was a weight heavier than any mountain. A profound stillness settled over him, deeper than his fear. Taking a breath that rustled the nearby bushes like a gust of wind, Grumbleton knelt, his movements deliberate and slow. With infinite tenderness, he scooped the tiny, feathered bundle into his vast palm, cradling Pip as if he were made of the most fragile glass. Hold on, little one, he rumbled, his voice thick but steady. He then stood, every fiber of his being screaming protest. As his head rose further and further from the comforting earth, he fixed his gaze firmly on the massive trunk of the old pine, focusing on the rough texture of the bark, the scent of resin, the solidity beneath his searching fingers. He refused to look down, refused to acknowledge the terrifying void opening up beside him. Each deliberate placement of his hand, each careful lift of his foot, was a battle fought against the churning nausea, and the primal urge to freeze. The climb was an eternity measured in heartbeats and sheer willpower. The wind whistled past his ears, tugging at his clothes, a constant reminder of the exposure. His muscles burned with the strain of moving his immense weight vertically, while his mind warred against the dizzying pull of the abyss below. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Cold despite the effort, Pip remained a warm, fragile weight against his skin, a silent anchor. Grumbleton focused only on the next handhold, the next foothold, the rhythmic scrape of bark under his fingertips, the sound of his own labored breathing punctuated by Talia's encouraging hoots. From above he inched upwards, a monument of fear slowly conquering itself. Driven by a love greater than his terror, the higher he climbed, the thinner the air seemed, but the louder the beat of his determined heart became. Finally, after what felt like an age, his trembling fingers closed over the edge of the rough nest. Talia darted forward, nuzzling her chick with frantic relief with the utmost care, his hands shaking not just from exertion but from the overwhelming height. Grumbleton gently placed Pip into the soft, familiar twigs beside his sibling. The owlet immediately burrowed into the warmth, a tiny sigh escaping him. Talia brushed her head against Grumbleton's massive thumb, her large eyes shining with unshed tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, a sound almost lost in the wind. Grumbleton managed a small, tight nod, the world swaying perilously around him. The descent awaited another trial, but the crucial act was done. He lingered just a moment, allowing himself one brief glance not down into the terrifying depths, but out. He saw the whispering woods spread below him like a rumpled, multicolored quilt under the first silver touch of moonlight. He saw the winding ribbon of the brook reflecting the stars, the distant smoke curling from the village chimneys on the plain beyond, and the impossibly vast, star-studded sky stretching to the horizon. It wasn't the dizzying drop that filled his vision now. It was the breathtaking, silent beauty of the world from above, a perspective he had spent his whole life denying himself. A profound sense of peace, fragile but undeniable, washed over him, mingling with the lingering tremors of fear. He hadn't conquered the heights. Not truly. The old dread still hummed in his bones as he carefully began his descent. But something fundamental had shifted deep within Grumbleton. He knew now that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the immense strength found in love's quiet whisper, the power to reach beyond your trembling self when another soul needs you more than you need your own safety. Back in the comforting embrace of the valley, the giant slept more soundly than he had in years, the memory of starlight on the forest canopy a gentle lullaby in his dreams, a testament to the day he climbed not for the view, but for a tiny, trusting heart.